You're tuned in to Sinister Shadows, where forgotten broadcasts resurface, strange signals bleed through the static, and the stories don't always stay fiction. If you found this channel, it's not by accident. Something brought you here. So settle in, stay quiet, and listen closely. What you're about to hear might sound like a story, but some shadows speak the truth.
I bought my land 15 years ago. 12 acres of quiet pasture, tree line on one side, a small creek running through the back, enough space to breathe and enough distance to keep the world out. The neighborhood didn't exist back then. Just dirt, heavy machinery, and a giant sign promising luxury living starting in the 400s. I remember thinking how insane that price was, but I shrugged it off. Their land was theirs. My land was mine. Simple. Over the next decade, the houses crept closer, street by street, SUV by SUV, stroller by stroller, until their perfectly trimmed lawns pressed right against my fence line. Then came the letters. At first, they were polite, friendly even. Just a reminder that residents in our community keep their properties well maintained. Please consider removing the old tractor from view. Yard should remain aesthetically pleasing. I ignored every single one, because I'm not part of their HOA. Never have been, never will be. Still, they tried. A new letter every month, more aggressive than the last. Warnings, threats, fines. They had no authority to issue. I taped them all inside a folder labeled trash. Put the folder inside a drawer, forgot about it. Then came the morning. I'll never forget. I was driving back from the feed store. Full bed of hay, sun barely rising, when I turned onto my gravel drive and stopped so fast my coffee flew out of the cup holder. There were trucks on my land. Construction trucks. 4 of them lined up like they were preparing for battle. Workers with hard hats. 1 with a clipboard. 2 swinging shovels like they were digging for gold, and at the center of it all stood the woman I'd come to know too well. Marta, president of the HOA. Walkie-talkie clipped to her belt, bright vest, sunglasses, acting like she personally owned every square inch of earth beneath her feet. I got out of my truck, slow, calm, quiet. "Morning," I said. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me at all. Instead, she pointed toward the ground with her pen. "We're prepping for the new community playground. Should be done in a couple weeks." I stared at the spot she pointed to. My land, my soil, my property line, a full 30 feet past where their neighborhood legally ends. I kept my voice flat. "Pretty sure that's my land." She laughed. Actually laughed, like I had told the funniest joke she'd heard all week. "We had it checked," she said. "All of this falls under HOA jurisdiction. You can relax. This will raise all property values." I didn't move, didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't even ask for proof. She was wrong, dead wrong. But I knew something she didn't, something she couldn't possibly understand. Arguing with people like her is pointless. You don't fight them with shouting. You fight them with silence and paperwork and patience. Lots of patience. She walked away, started barking orders. Workers dug deeper. Concrete forms went up. Rebar, tape measures snapping, spray paint lines marking where the swing sets and slides would go. All of it on my land. I reached into my truck, grabbed my phone, took a slow video from multiple angles, panned over license plates, recorded the property line stakes, zoomed in on the workers crossing well past the border. Quiet, documented, undeniable. Then I drove to town, stopped at the county recorder's office, paid for 3 certified copies of my plat map, picked up the original survey from my safe deposit box, and sent a message to a friend who works with a highly motivated land use attorney. I didn't tell the HOA a thing, didn't warn them, didn't confront them, didn't tape a notice to their clubhouse door. I let them build, let them pour concrete, let them finish the sidewalk, let them put in benches, let them run electricity for nightlights. Every nail they hammered, every bolt they tightened, every dollar they spent was another inch of rope they didn't know they were tying around their own neck. By week 3, the entire playground was up. Massive pavilion, rubber mulch, 2 slides, zip line, camera poles, everything top of the line. Opening day was Saturday. The neighborhood poured in. Kids screamed and swung and climbed. The HOA board held a little ceremony, ribbon cutting and all. Marta was smiling like she'd built the damn Eiffel Tower. Then the sheriff's SUV pulled up, slow, deliberate, gravel crunching under his tires. He stepped out, holding a thick envelope, stopped in front of the HOA board, cleared his throat. "Got a legal notice here," he said, "for the homeowners association, courtesy of your neighbor, the owner of this land." Every head turned toward me. I just stood there, hands in pockets, calm as a Sunday morning. Marta took the envelope, ripped it open, read the first page. Her face drained of color. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost, but I wasn't done yet, not even close. Marta's fingers trembled when she hit the second page. The papers fluttered in the breeze. Kids kept playing behind her. Parents kept chatting. Nobody had any idea their brand new playground was seconds away from becoming a crime scene. She swallowed hard. Then she tried to speak. I don't understand." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "You don't understand the meaning of trespassing, or the meaning of illegal improvements? Or should I point out the part where you built an entire structure on land you do not own?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Parents turned. Neighbors started murmuring. Someone whispered, "Wait, this isn't our land." I didn't say a word. Just let the moment breathe. Let the confusion settle into fear. Let the fear settle into anger. Marta shuffled to the last page. Her voice cracked. "This must be a mistake." The sheriff cut her off. "Ma'am, this is a certified survey, matching the county records, matching the original plat, matching every legal boundary on file. The playground, pavilion, walkway, mulch bed, lighting, and camera poles are all on his property." He pointed right at me. Every pair of eyes followed. You could feel the mood shift, that cold, slow wave of realization rolling through the neighborhood. The HOA had lied. They hadn't measured. They hadn't checked jurisdiction. They hadn't verified boundaries. They just assumed, acted, built, spent nearly $300,000 on something that wasn't theirs. And I had let them walk right into their own trap. One of the dads stepped forward. "You told us this was community space. You told us our dues were paying for something that belonged to us." Marta backed up a step. I was given the information by our landscaper. They said, "No," I finally said. Calm, even, clear. "You told me, on my driveway, that this was HOA land, that I should relax, that it would raise property values." A woman folded her arms. "That's exactly what she said." More parents spoke up. She threatened fines over his tractor. She tried to get the county to force him to paint his barn. She told us he was a problem neighbor. Marta's eyes darted around like she was searching for a lifeline. She didn't find one. The sheriff cleared his throat again. "Ma'am, as of this notice, the HOA is being served with a demand for immediate removal of all structures. Failure to comply will result in daily fines. Additionally, damages and legal fees apply. And construction without permission is a felony-level zoning violation. Someone yelled, a full-throated scream at the board. You spent our money on stolen land. It spiraled quick. Voices raised, hands pointed. People shouting Marta's name like she'd personally robbed them. Which, technically, she had. But I wasn't finished, not even close. I stepped forward, hands still in my pockets. I won't be demanding the playground be removed, I said. The crowd quieted. People leaned in. Even the sheriff looked over at me like he wasn't sure what I was doing. I'm keeping it. I paused. Let the sentence sink. It's on my land. It was built with your dues. And by law, every structure built without permission becomes the property of the landowner. Parents didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. The board just stared at me like I detonated a bomb at their feet. Marta's voice rose. You can't just take it. I shrugged. I didn't take anything. You gave it to me. The sheriff nodded slowly. He's correct, ma'am. The improvements legally belong to him now. Silence. Then a soft beginning of panic. But our kids, a woman whispered. I raised a hand. I'm not heartless. Kids can still play here. But starting today, I pulled a folded sign from my back pocket, held it up. Private property, access by permission only. People gasped. The board looked like they'd swallowed gravel. Marta stepped forward. This is outrageous. We will sue. You've made a mockery of this entire community. I met her stare. Calm, cold, certain. No, Marta. You made a mockery of it. The sheriff handed her a second envelope. This one is for you personally. Her face twisted. What is this? Your zoning violation charges and personal liability for signing off on unauthorized construction. You're being held accountable as the acting president. The neighborhood erupted again. People shouting, demanding her resignation, demanding refunds, demanding answers. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked under the weight of 100 angry homeowners. A dad yelled, You spent our money and didn't even check the lines. You told us he was the problem. Turns out you were the problem the whole time. I turned and walked back toward my truck. Slow, calm, measured. Behind me, the HOA board was collapsing under their own stupidity. Behind me, neighbors argued and cursed and pointed fingers. Behind me, Marta was drowning in the mess she created. And I hadn't even played my biggest card yet, because the playground wasn't the only thing they'd built on my land. Not even close. The crowd was still yelling behind me when I reached my truck. Dust rose around my boots. Sunlight glinted off the fresh concrete walkway they poured straight across my land. A sidewalk they thought they owned. A walkway they believed connected their perfect little neighborhood to their shiny play area. They didn't know I had something else in my pocket. Something bigger. Something that would take this whole disaster from bad to catastrophic. I got into my truck, sat there for a second, watched the panic spread through the HOA like a sickness. Board members huddling up, parents questioning, kids confused. Then I pulled out the second envelope, my copy of what the sheriff handed to Marta. But mine had an additional page tucked inside, a page she didn't get, a page I'd been waiting to reveal. It was the updated parcel map from the county office, not the original, not the certified copy, but a brand new overlay that included a detail the HOA didn't know about. A strip of land, narrow, long, hidden beneath the tree line. A strip of land they believed was theirs, a strip they built a walking trail on last year, connecting two ends of their subdivision. A project that cost them almost as much as the playground. And that strip belonged entirely to me, every inch of it. The HOA had built not one, not two, but 3 illegal improvements on my property. I watched the board scrambling, people yelling at them, kids crying because the playground was suddenly not theirs, parents pulling out phones to check their due statements. Then I stepped out of the truck, walked back toward the chaos, and the sheriff saw me coming. He let out a tiny sigh, like he already knew what was about to happen next. I stopped in front of Marta, held up my envelope. This playground isn't even the worst of it. She shot me a bitter glare. I'm done talking to you. You might want to hear this, I said calmly, before your own board hears it, before your entire neighborhood finds out. The HOA vice president turned. What now? I unfolded the parcel map, held it open, let everyone see the highlighted line. This trail you built last year? I pointed to the long strip of green marked HOA Nature Walk. That's mine. I tapped the paper. Every foot of it. The crowd froze. Hands dropped. Mouths fell open. Someone whispered, "No way. That cost us a fortune." Marta snatched the paper, squinted at it, then looked up at me. "You're lying." The sheriff stepped closer. "He's not lying. That's county certified. The nature trail crosses his land. Entirely." A mother gasped and slapped her hand over her mouth. "We paid for the trail and the playground, both on land we don't own?" I nodded once, slow, controlled. "And the pavilion you built for your summer events? The one where you hosted the 4th of July picnic?" The HOA treasurer blinked fast. That's ours. Right?" I pointed behind him, toward the tree line, toward the structure half hidden behind the oaks on the ridge. "That pavilion sits 6 feet inside my boundary." No one spoke. No one moved. It was like the entire neighborhood forgot how breathing worked. Then the shouting started again, louder than before. "You spent our money twice. We trusted you. You said the trail was approved. You lied about everything." The HOA board looked like they were being swallowed whole, backed up against their own playground, pressed by a crowd full of fury and betrayal. And Marta cracked. She jabbed a finger at me. "You did this on purpose. You could have stopped us. You let us build. You let us spend our money so you could humiliate this community." I stepped forward. Close enough, she had to tilt her head up to look at me. "I warned you. More than once. Every letter you sent me pretending I was under your rules. Every threat. Every insult. Every time you told my neighbors I was a problem." I pointed at the playground. "You built this because you thought you could bully me." Her face twisted. "You're destroying this neighborhood." "No," I said evenly. "You destroyed it when you built on land you never checked. I'm just collecting what's legally mine." The sheriff raised a hand to break the tension. "Ma'am, you need to understand something. The more you argue, the worse this gets. You ignored boundaries. You ignored warnings. You acted outside your authority. This is the result." One of the dads stepped in front of me, angry, desperate. "What are you going to do with all of this? What happens to the playground, the trail, the pavilion?" I looked around, at the angry faces, the collapsing board, the ruin they caused themselves, and I said the line that would haunt the HOA for years. "I'm not tearing anything down. I'm keeping it all." Someone shouted, "But it's our property." I shook my head. "No, it's on my land. It's mine by law. Marta sputtered. You can't block the trail. People use it daily. Then they'll need permission, I said. Written. From me. Someone cried out. What do you want? What's the point of all this? I met their eyes. Calm, steady, completely unfazed. The point? You built your community on my land without respect. Now, your community belongs to me. The sheriff cleared his throat again. One more thing, he said. Your attorney asked me to deliver this part personally. He handed me a smaller envelope. Much thinner, much deadlier. I opened it, smiled faintly, because inside was the final piece of the puzzle. The move that would flip their world upside down. Legal authority to annex the HOA's main entrance road. The road every homeowner used daily. The road they believed belonged to the neighborhood. A road built without permission on a sliver of my land they never noticed. Everything was about to collapse. Everything they owned depended on a road they didn't legally control. And I controlled it now. The crowd went quiet when they heard the words, main entrance road. Every homeowner froze. The HOA board froze. Even the kids stopped running around the playground and looked over like they could feel something shift in the air. The sheriff rested a hand on his belt. Folks, this is official. The landowner now has legal authority over the access road leading into your subdivision. The road crosses a portion of his property. It was built without permission, and the county has approved the annex. A wave of panic tore through the neighborhood. Voices rose, shouts, cursing, people grabbing their phones, people yelling at the board, because everyone knew exactly what that meant. Without that road, no one could reach their homes legally, not without trespassing, not without violating property law. Marta's jaw fell open. You can't do that! You can't own the road! That road is the neighborhood's lifeline! I lifted the paper in my hand. Not anymore. The HOA treasurer stepped forward, sweat on his forehead, voice shaking. There must be another access, a back road, an emergency road. I shook my head. There's nothing. One way in, one way out. And now, that way is mine. Someone in the crowd snapped. This is insane. You're holding the entire neighborhood hostage. I kept my voice level. I didn't build anything on your land. You built everything on mine. You chose this. It wasn't said with anger. It wasn't said with spite. It was simple fact. Just truth, landing harder than any threat ever could. The sheriff raised both hands. Everyone calm down. This isn't a standoff. The landowner has offered to work with the county. Nothing changes today. But the HOA will be renegotiating all access and easements. The vice president of the HOA whispered, What does that even mean? I answered for him. It means your HOA will be paying me for road access, monthly or yearly, whatever rate I decide. A ripple of disbelief spread. You're charging us to use our own road? I nodded once. It's not your road. It's my land, and the county agrees. The shouting started again. One man's voice broke through the noise. You let this happen! You never checked anything! Marta flinched, her face twisted with desperation. This is extortion! This is illegal! The sheriff shook his head slowly. No, ma'am. This is property law, and you should have known that before you approved any construction projects. People surged toward her. The board tried to back away. I watched them fold in on themselves, like a house of cards finally meeting a stiff breeze. The HOA secretary tried to steady her voice. So what happens now? What are you going to do with all of this? The trail, the pavilion, the playground, the road, all of it. I looked at the crowd, at the people who had spent money they didn't know they were losing, at the parents who trusted the board, at the homeowners who had no clue their dues were being shoveled into a hole. And I gave them the truth. The simple, quiet truth. I'm not tearing anything down. I'm not blocking the road today. I'm not stopping kids from playing. But from this point forward, everything changes. A woman spoke up. What does that even mean? It means your HOA doesn't call the shots anymore. They don't own the trail. They don't own the pavilion. They don't own the playground. And they don't own the road. I do. A homeowner at the front looked sick. So you, what, run the HOA now? I shook my head. No, I'm not part of the HOA. I'm something worse for them. I'm their landlord. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Someone else whispered, "We're screwed." But I wasn't done. Not yet. I reached into the envelope again, pulled out one more sheet, a county notice the board hadn't seen. "By the way," I said, "the walking trail crosses through a protected drainage easement. The county didn't approve it. The HOA violated environmental code building it." The treasurer's knees buckled. Oh God, oh God. "That's a $10,000 fine," the sheriff added. "Minimum." Parents started shouting again. "You wasted our money. We trusted you. You never checked a single boundary." Marta's voice broke. "You're ruining this entire community." I walked closer, looked her dead in the eye. "You built your community on my land. I just collected what was mine." Neighbors turned around her, like a storm closing in, accusing, angry, ready to tear the board apart. Before things got worse, the sheriff stepped between them. "Folks, enough. This will be handled through legal channels, not like this." The board wasn't listening. They were too busy drowning in the consequences they created. The playground, the pavilion, the nature trail, the easement violations, the trespassing, the unauthorized construction, the road, and the worst part, the part I hadn't said aloud yet. The HOA was legally responsible for all of it, and their accounts couldn't cover even half, which meant one thing: a truth that was about to hit them harder than anything so far. The HOA was going bankrupt, fast. And when an HOA collapses financially, property gets auctioned, assets get liquidated, neighborhood land goes up for sale to cover debts, and the person with the most leverage, the person with the most verified claims, the person whose land had been trespassed on and improved without consent. Me! The HOA board didn't sleep that night. Neither did half the neighborhood. Word spread fast. Social media blew up. People dug through old emails, old meeting notes, old budgets. By sunrise, the entire subdivision knew the truth. Their HOA wasn't just incompetent, it was collapsing. I stood on my porch sipping coffee, watching the sun come up, watching homeowners gather in the street, whispers floating on the morning air. How long do we have before fees go up? Can we sue the board? What if he charges us a fortune for the road? Then Marta's SUV rolled up the drive. Slow, cautious, headlights still on though the sun was already bright. She stepped out with a stack of papers, her face pale, eyes red, hands shaking. "We need to talk," she said quietly. I nodded toward the porch. She came up the steps like she was walking into a courtroom. She handed me a folder. Inside was everything I expected. Financial statements, emergency budgets, emails from landscapers, invoices from construction companies. And at the top was a typed note, HOA insolvency projection. The board had run the numbers, and it was worse than they thought. The playground, a total loss. The trail, a fine waiting to be issued. The pavilion, a liability, the road, an unavoidable expense. Their budget couldn't survive even one of those hits. And they had 4. Marta sank into the porch chair, hands clasped, voice barely above a whisper. I messed up. We all messed up, but please don't destroy this neighborhood. People have families here. They put savings into these homes. Kids grew up here. I stared at her, long enough for her to shift uncomfortably. Then I spoke, calm, controlled, cold. You tried to bully me into joining your HOA. You threatened me. You lied about me. You told people I was a problem neighbor because I wouldn't bow to you. She closed her eyes. I know. I was wrong. I'm not asking forgiveness. I'm asking for mercy. There was a long silence between us. Just wind through the trees, a dog barking in the distance, kids laughing faintly across the field at the playground they thought was theirs. Finally, I stood, walked inside, came back out holding my own folder. I placed it on the table. This is what I want. Her hands shook as she opened it. She skimmed the first page, eyes widening. You want to buy the HOA clubhouse? I nodded once. At market value. No more, no less. Your HOA needs cash, fast. This solves that. But the clubhouse is your biggest asset, I said, and the first thing that'll go to auction when you go bankrupt. She swallowed hard. And if we agree to sell it privately? Before the auction? I leaned forward. Then you avoid bankruptcy. You pay your fines, you fix the road easement, and you dissolve the HOA. Her head snapped up. You want the HOA gone? Yes, I said plainly. No more letters, no more threats, no more bullying, no more pretending you have authority over people you never should have controlled. Her eyes filled with tears. And the playground? The trail? The pavilion? They stay, I said. I'll allow community use. Free, safe, open. But under my rules, not yours. She pressed a hand over her mouth. People will love you for this. I shook my head. No, they'll just stop hating you. She nodded slowly, weakly, broken, and then she signed the first page, just the first, enough to start the process. When she left, I walked down to the road, looked at the entrance, at the sign that said Bright Oak Estates, HOA controlled. By evening, half the neighborhood showed up at my door. Some angry, some hopeful, most confused. I stepped onto the porch and told them everything. The HOA was being dissolved. The debts would be paid. The playground would stay open. The trail would stay accessible. I'd maintain the road at no cost to them. People gasped. People cried. People apologized for siding with the board. One man shook my hand so hard my arm hurt. Another hugged me. Kids ran around cheering. By the end of the week, the vote passed. The HOA dissolved. The clubhouse became mine. The debts were cleared. The fines were paid. And the board resigned in disgrace. And me? I gained 2 things. The first was land. More than I ever intended to own. More control than I ever wanted. More leverage than I ever needed. But the second thing was better. Peace. No more harassment. No more notices. No more threats. No more clean up your yard letters. Just silence. Freedom. And a neighborhood that finally learned the value of minding their boundaries. One night, a dad from down the street knocked on my door. He held his son's hand. The kid looked up at me shyly. We just wanted to say thank you, the dad said. That playground, it's the only place my boy feels safe to play. And you didn't have to let us keep it. But you did. The kid lifted a small drawing, crayons, a picture of the playground, and me standing next to it. I took it, hung it inside my house, and realized something important. I didn't just win. I didn't just get revenge. I didn't just end the HOA. I fixed the neighborhood in the one way the HOA never could, by giving people what they actually needed. Not control, not rules, not fines, not power. Just a place to live peacefully, together, all because they built on my land, and I let them finish.